How you doing, everybody? Dennis Willis here with another edition of Shortwaves. This is our very cheekily titled series of mini episodes happening between seasons 3 and 4. We're coming back with season 4 in March. If you stick around to the end of the show, we're going to tell you where and when you can actually see season 4. And we've got so many cool things coming up. We can't wait for you to see what we're working on. But first, this week, we welcome Robert Berry, a San Jose music veteran. He runs Soundtech Studios, plays just about every instrument, writes, produces, and has worked with the likes of Sammy Hagar, Greg Kihn, Steve Howe from both Yes and Asia, and in 1988 he became part of the band 3 with Carl Palmer and Keith Emerson. 30 years later, he returned to that project in a most unexpected way. And now it is time to welcome Mr. Robert Berry to Soundwaves. How you doing, sir? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Dennis, thank you. The Mr., I don't know. That's like a respectful kind of term. I don't know that,
I think you've earned the Mr. You're like one of the hardest working dudes in the Bay Area for decades now. You're a San Jose boy. You are a lot of folks, they have a story where they started someplace and they left or they float around, but you've always been a South Bay guy. We are all about the Bay Area music scene. It doesn't get any more Bay Area music scene than you. Take us back a little bit. You were raised on music, literally.
Exactly. It's crazy. My dad had a band and my mom was a singer in it. It was 40s and 50s. So they had a big band, you know, horns and all the stuff.
Yeah, I love it.
They toured to Texas and back east and all over the place. And then they had me. My mom basically gave up the singing part of it. My dad opened a music store. There was a guy in town here. It was called Moyer's Music. It was an old-fashioned, really old guy, had band instruments and everything. Well, he was a friend of my dad's, and he got these organs in, Thomas organs, that Lawrence Welk was using, if you remember that name.
Yeah, sure.
I guess big TV show from 50s, 60s, I guess, you know, a 1, a 2, a 3. I know all this.
Every Saturday night at 7 o'clock, that's what you put on.
It paid for our house, right? I mean, he sold this anyway. Moyer's gave my dad a couple organs. I don't know what to do with the organs. You want to open a store? Since I had a band, my dad said, okay. And he sold them like in a week. So he got some more. And Moyer said, you just take these organs and sell them. I don't do with them. My dad, Thomas Organs were the name of the company. He was probably doing it, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so when Thomas decided to bring Vox guitars and amplifiers from England over, which is what the Beatles used. Right. And from there, I mean, I was 7, 8, 9, Count 5, Chocolate Watch Band, Syndicate of Sound, all these bands that had hit from San Jose were coming to my dad's store to see the Vox amps. In 8th grade, some guys come into my dad's music store and said, we hear your son plays piano. Can we get him in our band? My dad looked at me, do you want to be in a band? I didn't even know a chord. I was playing classical piano, stuff I can't play today. It was so hard, right? I said, I don't know. He said, he'll be there. When's practice? Wednesday night.
Nice.
And it really got me a huge head start because these guys knew what they were doing. They knew how to book. They knew how to sing, how to play. And I didn't know any of it. But I never had to start a band that didn't know what they were doing because of it. Because I go, oh, that's how it's done.
That was going to school right there. That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a college. And of course, I majored in music at San Jose State in college later on. But what I had learned from those guys, Eddie Callahan is still a friend of mine, lives up to Oregon, guy that got me my first band. Tony Langmeyer's in Texas, got me my first band. They were together. I owe them so much because they took care of me too. They didn't let, I don't know, some guy give me a beer at 12 years old and you know, steal my equipment, whoever it was, you know.
Sure, right.
It was amazing actually to be in the San Jose scene, which was huge then. You know, a lot of the San Francisco bands sort of came from San Jose. Even the Doobie Brothers, they were Santa Cruz, but San Jose. Grateful Dead started here. I mean, the acid tests that they were doing in the old days, San Jose, right?
All of this came into my, I was peripherally aware of a lot of it, but I directly got involved and learned all this stuff when you and I actually ended up working on a project a couple of years ago that became the San Jose documentary, Changing Boundaries, the history of San Jose. And I remember, I don't think I ever told you this, but we'd be in the room and we'd be kind of crunching out what something's going to feel like. And then it was time to go to you because you were composing music for the film.
Right.
And what was amazing to me, and I don't know why I doubted it, but I didn't doubt it, but it blew me away anyway. And that's that we would be like, well, we need 90 seconds. I don't know if you remember this, but we would be like, okay, we need 90 seconds and we need it to sound like you're climbing up the side of a mountain, or we need 2 minutes here and it's got to feel like you have the flu or there's a fire. And you're like, no problem, I got it. And damned if everything you sent wasn't spot on, perfect, amazing, and you worked fast. And that's when I really became appreciative of how you could just zero in on exactly what the music needed to be for any given situation. That is not something that you just learn out of a book. And most people who even do it throughout their whole life they're not as finely attuned to that as you are. It's so there's no question there. I just wanted to say that. But I guess that spills over to my next thing is I want you to talk about Soundtech Studios, because that's where you are now. It's the studio you've built. You have an incredible reputation working out of this studio. Your work ethic is just phenomenal and known everywhere from the people who worked with you. Tell me a little bit about how awesome Soundtech is, what you've got in there, first of all, and your approach to recording these bands that you're watching. We got a lot of bands to watch the show. Here's why you should hire Robert. So go. Here's your.
Well, you obviously got my check, because you're saying all that list of things I stole. You better say this about me, Dennis. Now, come on now. I'm not going to put up with this. And it was a check. You can see that he cashed it already, obviously.
My Venmo is no.
I appreciate the kind words. Soundtrack stuff is always tricky. You have to sort of absorb what the other guy wants, which as an editor and stuff too, working on it, you kind of had to do that. That didn't quite go the way I thought it was going to go with that documentary. There was a whole lot of history and music and everything that wasn't in there. And I had to get into the banjo and different things to, get back to the country and the miners and the huge Chinese population. Do that all. It was interesting. So I had to learn about it just to sort of complete that, and then hope that maybe the simplicity and the organic piece of it, because who really knows back in the early days what a guy was playing on his porch? You think a guitar, like you picture an old blues guy, right? You don't really know, and you don't have recordings from way. Anyway, Soundtech. I've been here 35 years. I recorded when I was 12 years old, that first band at a studio called Tiki. Tiki Sound is still there. Grady O'Neill, my second dad, he raised me in recording. At 12 years old, I really didn't know what to do in a band. The song was called Strange One, the bass player had written. He was 18, I was 12, and Strange One, and Grady goes, it needs a break. Right in the middle of it, you need to have this drum. Boom, ba, ba, boom, ba, ba. I went, well, that's cool. He goes, and he looks at me and goes, and that needs a little keyboard lick there. Huh? Yeah. What would that be? He goes like, and I went, he goes, that's perfect. And I went, well, that was easy. I mean, right there, the switch went. Nice. I just made up something, and I could make up 4 more of those. Oh, and maybe he'll pick one he likes. Oh, at 12, right? Get a 4-track in my mom and dad's garage, and no baseball team on my block ever saw me. No girlfriend ever saw me. No, I was in there. I was recording. I was trying to copy Beatles songs. How do you get the sounds with one microphone that they get? Yeah. At 18, I'm at a friend's house, and Grady walks in. He's the milkman, and he walks in. He goes, I know you, because I hadn't seen him since I was 12. He goes, I know you. I said, well, I don't know. He goes, you play music? Yeah. And my dad had a music store. He goes, you were in the 4th Street exit. You record. Oh, come on down. See, we've really upgraded. I had a Mellotron at the time, which is an instrument that's like a sampler. It has strings and voices and everything. The Moody Blues use it for all their choirs. Grady hired me to come in and put strings and choirs on stuff. Then he hired me as an engineer, taught me how to engineer. I worked there for 10 years, and I had a client base that wanted to come with me to Soundtech when I opened it. So the day I opened, a guy named Danny Hull, who played with Journey and Michael Bolton and Doobie Brothers, he did his album with me. And I've been busy ever since, because
Nice.
the thing is, I get the equipment for me. My standard is super high because I had so much experience and so much exposure, but that's what everything in sound tech is. It's the standard that I want for myself so I can offer it to everybody else. I'll say right now, because this is what's going on. Every morning I walk in, I spray with alcohol. Every doorknob, light switch, couch, chair. Of course, the microphones are always sanitized with a UVC wand. I usually work with, like, if you write a song and you sing, you want to work with a guy like me because your guitar player friend wants to play his best licks, and you don't want his best licks. You want your song and your voice to come across. So I have a lot of people one at a time come in. Most of my business is that. I produce 3 bands a year. Tempest being one of them, the Celtic rock band, great band.
Right.
Country band, another rock band, excuse me. And I love working with all of them, but it's the first time people that have no experience that really thrill me, because I have the best of everything. I have a lot of experience, and they can bring that song in. And when it's done, they just, this sounds like it should be on the radio. So, well, that's what we're doing. Now here's the hard part. Get it on the radio or on
Right.
That's the hard part.
Well, you've just touched upon 2 very sobering aspects of the music industry. One is COVID-19 and how everything is shut down. And the other one is the state of radio right now. And yet I've never heard anybody, I think, so excited about the process of making music. What keeps you going at this time? What gets you out of bed when everybody else is like, oh man, I don't know, I think I'm going to move out of state and get a real estate job? I've heard that from musicians, and it breaks my heart. But what keeps you going right now, and where are we going down the line with all this?
Yeah, that's a good question. People sometimes take this wrong when I say this, but I'm lucky. I've made my life in music. I've made a living where I can own a home, nice car, have a nice studio. But you only judge the quality of your success about what you'd like for yourself. Now, me, I play with Greg Kihn. I would have liked to have 2 hits, breakup song and Jeopardy, and go out every summer for 3 months and play. Jimmy Buffett, 1 hit, goes out every summer, play. Right? That was my dream. So I don't feel like I've reached, just because I can make a living and do what I love. I still have this goal of, you never know. I always say, what am I going to do tomorrow? What can I achieve tomorrow? Today is planned. I'm going to speak to you. I was excited about it. Go, this is really good because I love what you do, and your energy is good. Your show is good. Your work is good outside of the show. Everything about it. So,
thank you.
It's the kind of people I like to work with. So I was excited, but this is planned. Okay, we're doing this. What am I going to do tomorrow? Well, tomorrow, this is already out, but
Let's talk about that.
Promotion to do on it.
I think this is an absolutely amazing story, and I'm glad that I'm talking to you about it, because I know you. Take us back to 1988, because Emerson, Lake and Palmer broke up, and you ended up, in essence, replacing Greg Lake. And the band was called 3. The project was called 3. I saw those videos at the time. I didn't know you at the time, because they were on MTV. But that project ended up re-entering our lives a couple of years ago. Take us back to the beginning and tell us about the 3 project.
Interesting enough, Carl Palmer called me here at the studio, right, we're talking now, and I thought it was a joke. That was a friend of mine playing a joke, and then he wound up 5 minutes in going, well, I'm here with John Kolodner. Well, that was the A&R guy at Geffen that was grooming me for a solo career. I went, this really is Carl Palmer. Oh, okay. Goes, well, I'd like to meet you, and my manager is going to be in town with GTR, so Steve Howe's new band. So I went to meet the manager. He goes, we'll fly you in and see what you and Carl get going. Carl and I didn't get anything going with the people that meshed, just nothing bad, just wasn't special. And Steve Howe needed somebody in GTR, who I'd seen. So I joined GTR with Steve Howe, replacing Steve Hackett from Genesis. They did the 2 Steves had that. And so my first real break was with GTR and Steve Howe. And I spent a year with them writing with Steve and being resented by a couple of the other guys, the singer especially, because I was the new guy And I was in there to facilitate this new music, and Steve and I were writing. It was turned out really good. The record company loved it. They okayed the budget. And I looked around, I said, you know, even though this is where I want to be, I love Steve Howe. We're working great together, but these other guys are making my life miserable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to quit. I'm going to go home. I know I can do better. I don't know why I said that, because when the chance was I would never do better. That was Steve Howe from Yes, one of my heroes, right?
Right.
I told the manager, who was Brian Lane, very famous manager. He was not very happy with me. I think I told him on like a Saturday, and I was going to fly home then on a Tuesday. Calls me Sunday and says, Keith Emerson would like to have lunch with you. He likes your cassette tape. And I go, well, Carl must have played that for him.
Mm-hmm.
And Keith and Greg Lake had a little bit of a fight. They were supposed to do a new album, but Greg had no songs and he wouldn't do anybody else's songs, is what Keith told me. And so Keith was looking to do something like Carl had done in Asia. So we got together. He was amazing, friendly, just a real warm and loving human being, where I thought he was going to be like Einstein, where I wouldn't get a complete sentence out of him, be equations. He's this mad keyboard genius, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we started a band, and it did really well. We had a top 10 single. That's where I wanted to go. I'm going, God, it's great that I left that, and I got this opportunity because they treated me like an equal. This is Carl Palmer and Keith Emerson. I mean,
and let's face it, legends at the time.
Oh my God. Yeah. You definitely. I mean, I couldn't even think about that when I was working with them. I was like, okay, let's move forward. We're working here, because, you know, I had a job to do. Unfortunately, I mean, Carl never got criticized for it because he had done Asia, which did songs with progressive music in it, but Keith had never done that. It was always these crazy, wild, long pieces and really virtuoso playing. Got a couple of letters from fans, because there was no internet then, that just really derated everything he was doing. They said, this is terrible. You need to go back to ELP. And Keith was susceptible to that kind of stuff. So he broke up the band. Now, for 27 years, we had done, he played on a Tempest album for me. We'd done a guitar showcase commercial together. If you remember the music store here.
Yes. Sure.
We did a few other things. He played in a solo album, a solo for me on the Moog. We just stayed friends, Christmas cards, whatever calls, you know. But I'd never bring up Three, because it really hurt him what those guys had said about him playing songs and not doing the virtuoso stuff. A guy, I think it was 2014, 2015, a guy started the Three Facebook page. I don't know this guy, you know, and all of a sudden there it is. And people are chiming in going, I thought that was a great album. And I'm looking at this. And so I get a hold of this guy, I say, wow, this is really something. I mean, I always thought we were a good band, but I'm seeing there's a lot of fans out there. His name is Rolf. We become good friends. He single-handedly drove the reopening of Three, where a record company wanted to put out a live album. There was a bootleg from a place in Boston we played. They put it out, and Keith, we had to sign off on it. The day that it showed up, because they sent us copies, Keith played it. That night, glass of wine, listened to the album, and he called me so excited. He goes, my God, we were a great band. And he's smoking hot on this live thing. And it's amazing what he does. And I said, well, I always thought so. I said, there's my chance. What would you think about doing a follow-up? And he said, maybe. I said, let me call the record company. This Frontier's been bugging me for 10 years about it. Let me call him. I got really big money for Keith, good money for me, complete artistic control, a year to do it. I called him back. He goes, who has that kind of money? Because this was 2016. I mean,
oh, sure,
you know,
right.
It wasn't that long ago. Record companies weren't given $500,000 budgets like Three got. He was excited. Really, he goes, wow, well, let's do this. We started working on it. We exchanged files. We talked on the phone. I mean, he wasn't savvy enough for Zoom or FaceTime or anything. He just didn't like all that stuff. He could barely send an email. But on the phone, he's fine. And behind this camera here is my Casio piano that I use to tell people, you need to, you know, if you're singing, you're flat, you need to do that. Well, he had one in his living room. Actually, it was in his bedroom. And we would sort of jam back and forth, and I'd play, you know, chopsticks, and he'd play Beethoven or something, you know, right? And we started writing this album.
Over the phone, playing a Casio keyboard.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Both on, yeah, just on these electronic keyboards back and forth, you know, and of course he had sent me some really good stuff too, digital files that were high quality, good stuff. but I had no idea that he was having problems at home, physical problems. His arm, everybody knew about the operation, but he could still play.
Mhm.
But he had some impending heart problems and just things that were wearing on him, and I had no idea. And of course, he committed suicide right in the middle of this album, and that took me down because I waited 27 years to do this album. Plus, he was just really a great guy. I mean, he's just, everybody felt like they knew him, but I really knew him, So it took me a year to sort of, reach out to his son, say, I got this stuff we worked on. And Aaron Emerson said, you should finish it, and I finished it. Then the record company wanted to put it out. I said, I don't know. I don't feel right about it. No, it's really good. And a couple other people I checked it with, Rolf being one of them, said, man, this is really good. And it would be the perfect way, Keith's last work, to be remembered with this really great stuff.
Right.
So put it out. I have a copy of that. This is a Japanese copy, but it was the yellow one, we'll call it. And it's called The Rules That Changed. And it did tremendous.
And so now you've got a second album. Like this has become an ongoing project for you. So
yes.
A brand new album has come out, 3.2. Tell me about it. How do we go from what in essence became a very powerful tribute to an ongoing project for Robert Barry?
I consider it that there's 3 albums in the 3 series. The first one was Carl, Keith, and I. The 3 of us did it. It was called To the Power of 3. The second one was Keith and I, even though I had to finish it after he died. But it was mostly our work together, a couple songs. Like on the first album, I wrote 2 songs by myself. So on the second album, I wrote 2 songs by myself. The rest was with Keith. Now, I didn't want to do the third album, the new one. But I had 1 song left that was 10 minutes long that Keith and I had written. It was too much for the second album. And the record company says, you need to follow up. The Rules That Changed it so well. You have to do it. You really need to do it. I said, I tell you what, if I can write 7 songs that I think, first of all, Keith would have wanted to work on, that I'm proud of, and I think has the 3 sound, but also is going to move me forward toward, because I'm not going to do another one. I only have 1 piece left for Keith, whatever I'm going to do next, if I can, graduate that scale to whatever that's going to be, I'll do it. I wrote the 7 songs. I went, well, gee, I'm really pleased with those. And I don't know where they come from. They just come out. We talked about that before.
Sure.
And I finished up the last song Keith and I wrote, which was called Never. And I thought, wow, there's something speaking to me in Never, because this will never happen again. This is the 3rd album for 3, the last album. This song's called Never. Played it for the manager, and he said, this is going to stir up some people in the progressive world. And this could be the best of all 3 albums, this piece of it.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, listen, man, congratulations on this release and the entire process. It sounds very personal and cathartic. I could talk to you all day about this stuff. You are endlessly fascinating. You know this business inside and out. And I think you've got a really keen vision of where it could go. But it won't, because all the best ideas give way to, capitalism and the big guys.
There you go.
And,
yes.
But you know what? We're out here fighting for the little guy and fighting for the independent voice. And that's what I love about you. I just since Hush, and that was my first real exposure to you, and just through the years following you and then getting to know you and work with you, I have so much respect for you. And I'm so thrilled that you've come on the show. We'd love to come down, shoot something at SoundTech. We'd love to have you on one of our panels where we're scrapping it up. But right now, just everybody go check out this album. We're going to leave you now with a video from that album, and it's aptly titled Fond Farewell. Robert Barry, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Always enjoyed talking to you, Dennis.
the distant past. And now politics in an ugly disguise. It's what you get when you barely try. Having come to the end, will the day start again? A fond farewell. A fond farewell, my friend. This could be the end. We had history struggle to set us free, where bright and honest men fought for peace. Their loyalty and dignity, did we let it go? Slip through our hands and slowly fade away. That road to truth they paved, yeah. Our society now hit and run. Do I know the rules? Well, that's been done. With the forefathers sweat and blood, was a foresight what we've become. Have we come to the end? It was always to win. A fond farewell. A fond farewell.
And that about does it. Special thanks to Robert Berry. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us on this edition of Shortwaves. Robert's Project 3.2, Third Impression, is out now. Check it out. Buy the CD so Robert makes more money than streaming. It's really a special and unique music project. Thank you again, Robert. And for everybody out there, check us out at our social media accounts. Every single darn one of them is Soundwaves TV. And of course, we're going to be posting the latest and greatest about Soundwaves TV as we move closer to season 4. And check this out. Last season, we did a limited run on Coffee TV 20. We're happy to announce we're returning to Coffee TV here in the Bay Area at a new time, 11 o'clock p.m., before Saturday Night Live, after prime time, and right on the heels of Creature Features. So watch Creature Features and Cool Horror, and then stick around for the music. I can't think of a better Bay Area double feature. Can you? Don't answer that. Special thanks again to Robert Berry. I'm Dennis Willis, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. We'll have a few more of these Shortwaves until season 4 starts, and then we've got a full year of awesome stuff planned. Until next time, we'll see you.